Okay, so this is a little help on groups and teams. It's something that I kind of created, but I've seen similar things in the literature, in other textbooks and so forth. So I think there's some definite validity to it I want to share with you. In order to share this with you, I need to clarify what performance norms are, what cohesiveness is, a relationship between the two, and a function called the Lewin change model, all on the right side here. I've got my little pointer up next to it. Performance norms, I put another video next to this one on a candid camera elevator video. Hopefully, when you watch that, you'll see that people fulfill the social expectations of those who have credibility around them. So when the man steps into the elevator and everyone turns around, he turns around, or when they take off their hats, he takes off his hat because he feels like that's what's expected of him. He doesn't really know the rules, he's just following. So when social pressures cause people to act, we all act accordance with social pressures, that's where a performance norm comes from. In an organization, when UPS, when I was growing up, was always known for being a really good but hard place to work. You made a lot of money, but they started at 2:33 in the morning. You had to be on time, and everyone worked extremely hard in the baggage handling section. I don't know if it's like that now, but how do you know that's the case? You know because when you get a job there, you see everyone doing that, and it's very clear that you're not going to last if you don't fit in and your performance doesn't fit those social norms. Some organizations, people are relatively lackadaisical and lazy, and that's what you do to fit in. And if you work very hard and you have a different performance norms, you can actually be ostracized because you're making them look bad. You're not fitting in. They don't work that fast and that hard. So that's what performance norms are. Cohesiveness, I've defined as the extent to which we identify with and we like the members of a social or work group. The example I give of cohesiveness is a glaring one. It's the military, because I've had that experience and see how powerful that effect is. In the military, they take you and shave your head, if you're a guy at least, and they put a uniform on you, and there's nothing that identifies you as unique. You have no civilian clothes. You don't bring any food or any personal items in with you. You can't have those. And they abuse you, essentially. They do it for a whole number of reasons, but one of the main reasons is they need to break down your individual identity and create a collective identity. They often refer to this as esprit de corps, or pride in the corps or the group, where in order to be a soldier, you really need to put the needs, wants, desires of the group above your own needs. So when it comes to your opportunity to attack Pork Chop Hill or some fortified position, and you know that you're putting your life at danger, you simply follow rules, you follow the orders that are given to you, and put your own concerns second. So cohesiveness can be enhanced by doing things, I'm just going to scratch the surface, like decreasing the size of the unit or the group. That happens on average because, quite frankly, and I guess the most visible indication of this is that with 20 people in a group, you have 20 people to learn their names and about them. With 10 people in a group, it's easier. You simply just have 9 other people to learn about. So decreasing the group size. And then another thing that's important is cohesiveness can be amplified or is amplified when a group faces challenges from outside of itself. So if you're working in the accounting department and there's an audit of the accounting department, you pull together, you get all the necessary files and paperwork together, you have meetings to address each concern as it's brought up. It's a grueling, drawn out process, but you do it collectively together. You've defended yourself as the accounting group. At the end of that, it's likely that you'll feel an esprit de corps or a bonding or a sense of group satisfaction, which is a sign of increasing cohesiveness. To decrease cohesiveness, you can do, in those two examples, the opposite. If you have a small group that's cohesive, which is more likely than a large group, you can simply add members to the group, and by doing so makes it increasingly challenging for people in the group to continue to know one another at that intimate level. Also, unlike increasing cohesiveness, when you decrease cohesiveness, you can have a challenge from within the group, and you can create this by putting someone in the group that you know won't have consistent views with those held by the group, or you can also have someone as somewhat of a confederate. Confederate is someone who is working for you, who knows what the goal is. You could talk with a key employee and say, I'm going to put you in this group. It's a highly cohesive group. It's tight. They like one another. They've been together a long time. I specifically want to include you in this group because I'd like you to challenge some of the assumptions that they're making about quality of work and rate in which work is completed and so forth. And by doing that, that group will no longer have the quick consensus of all members of the group. They'll have someone who says, wait a minute, I don't know if I agree with this, and that dissension will tend to break up cohesiveness if they are accepted as a member of the group first. And then I highlight here the relationship between cohesiveness and performance norms, mainly that cohesiveness amplifies the effects of performance norms on behavior. That is maybe sound like a fancy way to say it, but I don't know a more straightforward way. Given that a group is, for instance, has high performance norms, they're doing the right thing lots of times. They're mostly doing the right things in the right way. A highly cohesive group will do that even more. The cohesion that they feel among the group means that, like, for instance, if you add a member to 8 group member that's highly cohesive and high in performance norms, the 9th member will more likely step right in line with what the other 8 were doing, because there's a very clear, strong performance norm, high performance norm, and the group is not wavering. They are all consistently doing that. They're a highly cohesive group. You can have the same high performance norms, but a group that doesn't identify with one another and the cohesiveness is not as strong, then the effect of that performance norm will not be as evident in the group's behaviors. I know that's a mouthful. Maybe listen to it again if I went too fast. The Lewin change model says that before we engage in a change, the bottom right corner, we will UF, unfreeze, and then change, and then RF, refreeze. That simply means that if you're going to be the manager of a group and you need to initiate some sort of change, you should first consider that you need to get the members of that group ready for change. How do you do that? You unfreeze. What is unfreezing? Unfreezing is the process of convincing people through emotional appeals and rational persuasion that there is a need that we do things some new, different way. You need to get people open to the idea that we probably need to make some kind of change. We don't know what that is. After you do that, then you make suggestions, working with the group, hopefully, to come up with some agreed upon ways in which you can change the way things are being done. That's the change process, training them, getting them used to this, giving them the new tools they need. Once that's done, then you refreeze, meaning you reward those changes and you demonstrate to the group, look, before we made these changes together, this was our level of performance. This is how we performed. After we collectively made these changes, look at our performance now. Good job. This is the way we need to be doing it. We need to not refreeze too much, because in this dynamic world that we live in, change is a constant. We're going to have to go back to the same process at some point in the future, more than likely, and loosen up and unfreeze the way we're currently doing them, and make a new change, another change, adapt to the world around us, internal and external factors, and then refreeze again. And soon, this cycle will just become what we do in our organization. We re-examine how we're doing things, we prepare for a change, we see the need, we initiate the change, and then we somewhat celebrate the change and refreezing. Okay, so the second part of this, now we're going to take this knowledge that we just went over, and we're going to apply it to this matrix. Now, one assumption I want you to make in this is that you will, as an employee, you're going to inherit the worst case scenario group. And the reason I want to make that the assumption is not that I hope it for you, because I don't. I hope you get an awesome group. But if you're a sales manager, or district manager, or group manager of some sort, you should be prepared for the most challenging case scenario. I'm sure you agree, and that's what I want to prepare you for. I think there's a mistake that people fall into. First of all, let's identify what's best case and worst case scenario in this matrix. Would you rather have a group that's high or low in performance norms? Remember, high performance norms means that people are regularly doing good things, working hard, working long, working right, working smart. And low performance norms is kind of like doing the wrong things, or certainly not doing the right things with any frequency, not functioning well here. Low performance norms. Now, all things equal, I'm sure you'd agree, we'd rather have a group that's doing high performance norms than low. Let's look at best case scenario. So high performance norms, now the question is, which quadrant do we go into? Do we put ourselves in the upper left or the upper right? Well, the difference between the two is just cohesiveness. In one case, we have low cohesiveness, and another we have high cohesiveness. And like many matrix scenarios, this is no exception. High performance norms is amplified by the cohesiveness and makes this the star, the best case scenario. Now let's look at worst case scenario. Worst case scenario was going to be one of these other three quadrants. Now, would we rather have high or low performance norms? Well, we'd rather have high, so worst case scenario is down here. We're going to have low performance norms. Now the question is, do we want high or low cohesiveness? And now, this is the trick. When I run through this with students in the class and they are looking at it, most times they say, well, low, low, because that's always the answer. The best is high, high, then the worst has to be low, low. But that's not the case because of what we said here. Cohesiveness amplifies the effects of performance norms on our behavior. Therefore, this low performance norm, this doing the wrong thing or, habitually, is going to be worse when cohesiveness is high. And so we're going to call them a gang. And let me get a photo of a gang to put in there for you. Okay, so there's your gang image. I tried to find a non-racially charged one. I like the ones of prisoners with tattoos, but that's like an Irish gang or something. If it helps you, think of a mean, ugly, combative, drug dealing, the worst case scenario, street gang or something. These folks are just probably not playing ball according to the rules, but not that bad. But think of a bad gang. Now, so this is worst case scenario. This is best case scenario. How do we prefer this left column? In both cases, the cohesiveness is low. So do we prefer high or low performance norms? Well, if cohesiveness is low, it's not going to amplify anything. And so performance norms high or low, we'd prefer them being high. So your matrix is going to look a little bit like this, with the star being 1, your preferred, number 2 being your second preferred, 3 your third, and 4 the highly cohesive low performance norm gang. So now let's assume that you inherit a cohesive group with low performance norms, a gang. How do you manage to turn and transform that gang into a star? And I'll pause there for a minute and give these rules of thought, these definitions and relationships and the Lewin change model some thought, and then unpause your video when you think you have an answer. And then by the magic of video, I'm back. Hopefully you pause for a second if you didn't already have an idea. Well, the number one answer that people give, because it seems quite intuitive and obvious, is that they say, well, the only thing you need from a gang that you don't have is performance norms. They're not doing the right thing, so they just need to be taught what to do. So I'm going to leave them as a cohesive group because that's good, because I know it'll amplify these positive performance norms. And so why would I want to wreck that? So I'm just going to go directly from the gang to a star in this way. But this isn't going to work. It's not going to work because if you go to a gang with the intention of changing what they do and how they do it, and they're a highly cohesive group, they're going to fight back because you are going to represent someone outside of their group, and they love to battle with outsiders, just like a gang does, because when they succeed in diminishing you, when they're victorious over you, they have conquered a force outside of themselves, and now they're more able to identify with one another as a tight-knit group. They've now been through something else together, been through combat. So taking on a gang directly is about similar to what a lot of managers do. They come into a highly cohesive group who's kind of messed up, and they say, all right, I know that other people come in here, and I know you've had a lot of people threaten what to do, but I'm telling you, it's my way or the highway. You better pack your bags if you think anybody can just leave right now. And what happens? Well, they probably don't say anything to your face, because you can, of course, just fire at least individuals, but they know there's power in the collective, and so they sabotage you. You don't really have a chance of winning when you take on a highly cohesive, low performance norm or gang type mentality of a group. What you need to do is consider what Lewin said, and that's quite simply to engage in emotional appeal and rational persuasion to get this group to realize that some of the ways in which they're doing the things they're doing are not effective at meeting the needs, wants, and desires of their own group, that there's a better way. And that's going to require quite a bit of time, and that's what managers typically aren't patient with. You have to live with the gang as a gang for a period of time until you can gradually open them up to new ideas. To do that, you basically need to work on lowering the cohesion of the group. We talked about just two ways of doing that: increasing the group size or creating dissension from within the group, putting someone in the group who will challenge the prevailing beliefs. In doing that, we'll lower, gradually, over time, we will lower cohesiveness, and we'll enter into the third quadrant here, which theoretically is better, but practically speaking, I'm not sure we'll see a lot of difference in the behaviors. We may just see less adhesion to these close norms. Oh, I think my mic died. Okay, hopefully I'm connected here. My mic just went out. What do we do then? We have a low cohesion and low performance norm group. Then we've gone through the unfreezing process. We've kind of broken them up as a group. We continue to unfreeze and convince them emotionally and rationally that there's a need for change. And then we introduce suggestions for that change, working with them, not in spite of them, but with them, to change the way in which we do work. Once we've accomplished that, we're in a good situation. We've got a group that's doing the right thing, but we've broken them up from a highly cohesive group to a pretty uncohesive group. We know there's power in cohesion. The very best groups are tight-knit. They do have a high cohesion. So then, after we've made these changes, we engage in the refreezing process. Bottom right corner of the Lewin change model. Refreezing looks like this. Good job. Look at how awesome you are. Look at what we've been able to accomplish in the new way of doing things. And we bring them into being a star. Recognizing that any time we're going to need to change the way we just learned how to do things and change again. So remember, don't take on a gang, not directly. Do it smart. Work on lowering their cohesion and then enhancing the way they do work, performance norms, and then reinstating their cohesion. That's what you're being paid to do as a manager. Be skillful about this. Don't come in with your baseball bat or your chain links and swinging them around, because this gang is going to tear you a new one. You don't want that.